Hi, my name is T, and this is my attempt to start this YouTube channel that I feel I wanted to start a while ago, but keep finding excuses for allowing procrastination and laziness to take over. Um, Oops. So as you can see, I'm early old school. We're in 20 at the end of 2025. And I know there's more high-tech way of doing this, but I haven't figured out how to transfer the data from the filming of my phone to my computer. So I decided to edit everything on a new phone I just bought, and then I'm using the dual camera to point at a tablet of the drawing I wanted to show instead of doing it in the editing program. I've didn't own a phone or any type of gadget connected to the internet for over 20 years, between 1999 all the way to 2021. So I just got my first phone in 2021, and as much as I thought that I never needed, the world make it impossible for me to just live without a phone. So I couldn't fly anymore. I couldn't have a bank account anymore. So I got one, and it took 2 years at least to get hooked to it. And now I feel like I'm like everyone I used to complain about, and I'm scrolling endlessly. And one of the reason that I feel I'm starting this YouTube channel is to give myself a creative outlet so I can stop binging on mindless scrolling and watching videos, and then use my free time to be creative instead of consuming other people's creativity, which was inspiring for some time. But I feel that now it's my time, and it's my time to share, and it's also more healthy for me to express what it's bottled up inside me instead of filling up my mind with other people's information. It's one thing when we absorb good quality of information, but eventually I've watched everything for the day, and then because we're so addicted, then we keep filling with lower quality information into our head, and I feel that I've been off balance for a while. So for this first video, I want to go back in time when all this started. I would say that I started a spiritual journey in 2012. And from 2012 to 2019, so for 7 years and a half, I was in this journey and not working, not dating. Half of the time I was shast and just focusing on practicing 8 hour a day in my morning routine, then writing, reading, and following teachers, mostly in India. And I felt that I finished this kind of quest in 2019, and I thought that I had no trigger and that I understood life. In the last 7 years, almost, I feel that I've relapsed and learn about post spiritual awakening. What's the life on the other side? And I feel there's more wisdom for me to share from experiencing both sides of the spectrum than from just pure spirituality, which is important. But I feel there's better teacher, more wise teacher than me for people who are fully committed to only the spiritual path. And so what I'm trying to share with this channel is the balance that we need to find while living in the matrix, living with emotions, with people, and with yourself. So this channel will be how to find balance within our health, our relationship, and also how to make an income consciously. And I have already many ideas that I want to share, but they will come in future video. I feel that to give the new viewer a glimpse of my background, at least the relevant part is I would like to share what I feel is a spiritual journey. And I feel the people would be interesting to this channel would be the one who are feeling that they are in a spiritual journey themselves or seeking for it. So I'll make it quick. I'm 46 now. I just turned 46 fresh. Most people think I look younger than I look like, and I agree. But I always make a joke that it's like made in China. I look good on the outside, but I'm all broken on the inside because I've had a lot of injuries. So I don't know if it's noticeable, but I have an accent and it doesn't match my face. Grew up in the French part of Canada, but I was born in Thailand in a refugee camp. And then we immigrated to Canada when I was just a baby, and my parents were barely just 18 and 19. They didn't know anything about Canada. They didn't know anything about the concept of snow, and they landed in the middle of January in a small town outside of the capital of Quebec. And I lived my first 25 years there. And after university, I moved to the West Coast, where it's famous for being the most famous rock climbing place in Canada and even in North America. And so this is more like my normal life, and then I will explain it here. So before there will be many videos for expressing different part of my life, but I'm just doing a brief overview for this video. And so before I started climbing, I would say that my life was pretty normal, like following everybody's path, which I call it the mainstream, following mainstream. And I mean by that I graduated in university in economy and did my master in environment, and not because I liked it, but because I was naturally good at school, like most Asian. And I was working for a different minister in the government, but I didn't like it. I wasn't happy. And at 25, I decided to quit everything. And at the time, I didn't spoke more than 5 or 10 words in English. And I moved to the West Coast, not knowing how to work with my hand, not knowing how to speak English. And the only thing that brought me there was rock climbing. Actually, I went there for finishing my thesis, my master thesis, and I ended up dropping out just 3 months before ending it. And I ended up in Squamish, British Columbia. And that's when I started going first against mainstream. There was other glimpse of action that I took earlier than that. That was in 2005 that I moved to Squamish for rock climbing. And before that, I still lived in the city. And like I said earlier, I canceled at the time nobody had cell phone. And in 99, I cut my landline, and just because I never liked it. And I'd throw my television in the garbage as well, and many more things. I stopped taking hot shower, there's many things I've done when I just turned 20, just by the feeling that I was feeling different, but I was still not knowing. I just felt different, but I didn't know I could get out of the matrix. Getting out of the path that was conditioned into my head. And so I just keep pushing my studies because I didn't know that there was something else outside possible for me. And yeah, and also stop buying Christmas present, birthday present, and all the present from mainstream society in 1997. I just turned 17 at the time, and I'll express that in a different video. but that was my first kind of action toward how I feel internally. But for this video, I want to go faster into what I call the spiritual journey. And so I started going a little bit against mainstream. But when I mean mainstream, is that there's nothing wrong with mainstream. It just means that you follow the path that is programmed by your culture, by your family, by your government, by the media. And then most people end up working, going to school at the capacity of your intellectual ability, and then after that, finding a job and getting promoted at the best of your ability, starting a family, hopefully with a wife and kids, 2 cars, a house, if you're able to, and paying your tax and etc., and having 2 weeks vacation every year. And when this is implemented into our mind and we only acting based on that programmation. And I feel that some people are happy with it, or some people are lucky with it, and they feel happy by being lucky. And then, when I was at school, I felt happy because I was naturally good at school. So I didn't struggle like the other kids. But eventually, you're not going to school because I enjoy school. I went when you're in high school or in elementary school, it was easy. I was not studying and I was having 100% or above 90 at least, because who your ego is enjoying feeling when the process is easy, but eventually it becomes harder. And as you keep studying, you feel more empty because you're feeling the pressure of knowing that school is not for just seeing your friend and have fun anymore, but you're building the stepping stone of your future career. And when everything that's ahead of you feel empty, feel meaningless, then it's like going toward the edge of a precipice, knowing that you're gonna fall off, but not knowing what other alternative that you can have to survive, to heal yourself, or to escape the jump. And it's like it's like going on the highway and then you want to exit, but you're going so fast that you can just follow mainstream and you don't know that you can slow down and then take a different direction in your life. At least when I was younger, before 25, I didn't know I had that option. And so actually, I ended up in the West Coast, not because I wanted to go, it's because it was the only place, not where I lived in Squamish for 10 years, but on the north, 60-kilometer north in Whistler, which is famous ski resort, is where it was the only place in Canada that was using the program I was doing research for my master's degree. And I was supposed to go there, and it just ended up that at the time I was climbing sometime in the gym in Montreal, and so I was not a real climber. But all my friend told me, "Oh, if you're going to the West Coast, you should go to Squamish. You're gonna like it. It's like the best place to climb in Canada." And so I had 3 weeks vacation between the end of school and the beginning of that research, and I went there, and it was the worst professional decision, but the best personal decision, or at least soul-filling decision that I could have, because I never end up going. It was the first time in my life at 25 that I was irresponsible, that I would not fulfill commitment toward my thesis director, toward the expectation of my parents, my family, even myself. Because before that, when I set my mind to do something, I've never bailed. I always do everything that I started. And so it was really confusing. And in the process of postponing my arrival to this town because eventually vacation finished and I was supposed to be there. I told nobody. I didn't tell my family. I didn't tell my director's thesis. I didn't tell the people that were waiting for me back in Whistler. And I was receiving email at the time. Everything works on email. And then I just felt the pressure, but I was paralyzed as to, I had no reason. I had no understanding of what was happening within myself. I arrived in the Squamish, and within a couple days, I felt more connected to the people that I just met in the climbing community than friends that I knew for 10, 20 years. And I loved them, but it was just not the same. I felt myself for the first time somehow. And so that was the first shift. Within that summer, I knew that I didn't want to pursue that thesis or anything that I wanted to do with Montreal, where I used to live. And so I went back at the end of the summer, quit my apartment, quit my job at the time, quit my research, and say bye to my friend, my family, and everyone I knew back in Montreal, where I grew up. And then move with all my stuff to the West Coast, not speaking English yet, and never have working with my hand. All my friends that were climber that I knew in Squamish were working construction. But at 19 years old, I fractured vertebrae from a ski accident, and I always been careful because I had a lot of physiotherapy to get me back to normal, but I also always felt weak. So I had to be careful. And I started with all kind of odd job, like painting, landscaping, and eventually in the winter there was no job, so I went to work in Whistler and housekeeping, and I hated all of them. But after almost a year, I realized that from climbing every day and working physically, I became stronger, and like it was different. My body was different than being studying and just being careful and not really studying and working at the government. I was not using my body, and I was never overweight or anything. I went to the gym, but it's not the same when you are using your body to live life. And so I gained a level of strength that I never experienced in my life, at least not since I was young. And I ended up risking a small construction job, at first for renovation and eventually roofing. And I felt amazing. And that was the beginning of what I call dirt bag climbing life. I think I put it here. So I went back up the mainstream, and here's where dirtbag climber is. And then I was happy, and I lived that life for a solid 7 years. All my shift seems to happen in time lapse of 7 years. And so that was the first big shift. So from 2005 to 2012, I labeled myself as a dirtbag rock climber, and in fewer words, it means that you work as little as possible, and then you can travel the world to rock climb and follow the climbing season around the world. So there's couple loops that we call, and there's loops. So because you can only climb usually in the spring and in the fall. And so I would go either like buy a van, start from Canada, and in the fall I would go down to the west coast of the United States, and then go all the way to Mexico and come back in a different route, and then come back to Canada and work again in Squamish. And I did this loop at least 4 times. I did some in Europe and Germany. I bought a van all the way to Morocco, and then Asia, and then Australia, New Zealand, etc. And the last trip in 2012, when I sold my house, I did a big trip. I sold my house, bought a big van, and then drove for 2 years all the way to Argentina to climb my dream mountain in Patagonia called Fitzroy. Anyway, all this to say that I was fulfilled. But in 2011, I was with the same partner for 3 years. She was from Germany. It took us a year and a half to get a residency in Canada. And my life was already perfect. but I wanted to be more perfect, meaning that I wanted to propose her and I wanted to buy a house, and there's nothing wrong with it. But somehow life had other plans for me. And as soon as I committed with those two things, I started to get injured. And then um, injuries are normal in climbing, but I've never really had bad injuries from climbing. I always recover even if I fell bad. And I fall a couple times on my ass, even on my head by uppily. I had a helmet every time I fall on my head. And but I fall on my ass on my body like 4, 5, 6 meters sometime on hard ground, and always been able to walk away from it. Touch wood. And but in 2011, 2012, something different happened. I was not doing anything crazy, and somehow I had 7 injury back to back. And odd enough, all of those injuries happened on the right side of my body, the ego side, the rational side. And I felt that I understood after the third injury that it was something speaking to me, but at the time I was too spiritually mature to connect the dot together. And but it gave a turn in my life because I couldn't identify myself as a climber anymore. I couldn't identify myself as a carpenter anymore. And so it was challenging and depressing because I couldn't do anything than be at home. And when you are injured but you are able to recover, then there's hope. But I keep getting injured after injury and having little time in between to enjoy life again and to be able to be functional again. So it was morally and spiritually and emotionally extremely challenging. All this to say that I think it was the third injury. I almost break down. I was about to break everything in my house because it was a worse injury. It was a knee injury, and it was from something. When you have a car accident and you end up at a hospital with a cast, you understand. But when you do nothing and then you have the worst injury, I mean, I didn't. It just woke up have an injury, but it was I mean, all my injury that happened in 2011, 2012 were not from accident. That's what I'm trying to say. And it was just frustrating. And I thought myself as being fit, being healthy, eating relatively well at the time even, but still I keep getting injured, and the injury would last like many months. And before I could recover, then the next injury would pull me down back to square zero. So it was really frustrating. And I don't know why I'm opening this, but it just helped me to, because as you can see, I don't have a really professional background. I'm in the middle of my kitchen and it's still messy, but I just wanted to get it out so I don't have excuses anymore. So I had those injury, and after freaking out and having a thought of wanting to break everything apart in myself and in my house and in my life, I received an email from an old friend, not even a good friend, just like somebody I knew who wrote at the time a mass email. So at the time we still functioned with email. And in fewer words, it was about something bad that happened to him, and he flipped it into a shift in his life purpose. And I felt that this was what I needed to realize that something was calling me to shift my attention. Because you have to understand, from 2005 to 2000, I already started climbing in 2000, but I feel that I was just climbing in the gym, and I was climbing regularly, but just inside and sometime going outside. And in 2005, I moved to Squamish, where it became a passion. For those 7 following years, I climbed an average 250 to 300 days a year. And so everything that I was doing, either work, dating, traveling, hiking, everything had to be correlated to rock climbing. If not, I wasn't interested. And then the glimpse came to me that maybe life has something more for me to discover. And if I had a healthy body, then I was so obsessed with climbing that I was so never minded about everything else amazing that existed. And I wouldn't be bothered to explore. But because I was injured, because I was unable to climb, then a new opportunity opened itself to me that I could, at least meanwhile, uh, shift my attention elsewhere. And out of nowhere, the first thing that happened to me is my roommate at the time gave me a book of Eckhart Tolle, The New Earth, and it was the only thing I could do is to read. So, and it was really mind blowing at the time. And out of nowhere, I had no interest before that about spirituality. I study economy. I'm really rational, pragmatic, logic, and grounded. I don't know if it's relevant, but and then out of nowhere, the spiritual world invaded me, literally. Either I was going downstairs to a garage sale, and somebody, I was looking at books she was selling, and she looked at me, is like, take this book. And it was a book of Osho, another famous spiritual teacher. And then it's a climbing town. There's a lot of people climbing. A lot of people focus on just outdoor activity like hiking, kayaking, mountain biking, everything. But I've never seen or heard anything about spirituality. And then in my building, there's somebody who posted a gathering about meditation, and I just joined. I was like, oh, this is odd. I cannot do anything, and this is a new interest of me, apparently. And then from there, I met my first Reiki teacher, which is an energetic healing. And all this happened really quickly. And as a result of that, a new energy, a new inspiration came out, and I had the vision that I had to go in a retreat on my own in the mountain for a couple of weeks. And that's what I did and eventually my knee healed, and then I was able to hike. And then it took me a few months to scan the whole mountain. There's many trails. And then I found a beautiful place overlooking the mountain for my first retreat. And my plan was to go for 3 weeks. And 1 week, all this came from intuition. It was nothing that I read or people have told me. It's just from inner intuition. I felt I wanted to go for 3 weeks. 1 week to decrease food, 1 week full fasting, and 1 week to increase food before I can return down. And in fewer words, I was still 32 at the time, and I had the last contract I already started working for just a few weeks after my injuries, and so you guys know my password now if you find my tablet. And that year, I only worked 17 days because I was injured most of the time. But I worked 17 days, and it was enough money for me for already for a year. I was working on myself on my own, but mostly I spend little money as a dirt bike rock climber because we live cheaply. We just climb and eat, cook on our own in the middle of the jungle or middle of the forest. And so the last contract, I told the guys I was working with, I say there was still more work to be done, but I said maybe when I come back from my retreat. But I was really, I promised myself that I would be up in the mountain from the first day of my 33rd birthday. Why that? First, because I had the feeling 33 was a special number. Throughout all my life, since I was a teenager, the number 11 keep popping out here and there on the clock or in random places. And at the time, I never knew it was a well-known spiritual number. I just keep seeing it here and there, and then but giving it a second thought. And also at the time, my ex-fiance was away to go see her family in Germany. So I thought everything lined up for me to have the time and to not worry her as well, because I knew I would be fasting, so I didn't want her to be worried by my loss of weight. So she was gone for at least a month and a half. So I told myself that I would have time to gain back my weight before she come back, so she wouldn't be scared. And so I went up there, and I knew that I wanted to eat just fresh fruit and vegetable, but I didn't do the math of how much calorie I would need or much food. I just knew that I needed some vegetable and fruit being ready to be eating this week, and some really unripe, so they would be eaten at the end of the second week, so for the third week. And I just fill up a backpack. It's like a 25-liter backpack, and then when I arrive up there, I arrive just after I finish work. I went to the grocery, put on my backpack, hike up, and it was sunset. In the morning after I wake up, it was my 33rd birthday, and I was already up there. But I was so much in working mode. I had worked 17 days in a row, made tons of money, and then I was just full of energy and still in working mode. And so I prepped my camping area, put some moss because it wasn't really comfortable on the tent, fixed the tent a bit more strong because it was like at the edge of a cliff. I had an amazing view, but it was really, really on the edge of a cliff. So I want to make sure I wasn't flying over the edge. And also, I had a trail, maybe 200-300 meters all the way to a little creek that I found, where I would go get water, unfiltered mountain Canadian water. I didn't get sick, but apparently it could be dangerous. So, not advising you to do the same, but for me it was fine. And so I work on the trail, and then the first day I ate without thinking, and then the second day, by midday, I was working a bit more, almost finished the setup. And then I checked the food, and I realized that there was almost nothing left. I realized that at this pace, I probably wouldn't last even the first week. And so I had to take a decision, either go back down, and then, I mean, I'm like, I think from memory is a solid 2 hour down and then 3 hour up with if you're heavy. So it's not a small hike, and it's like really steep. We're talking about steep. And so I say, okay, I can go back down, go to the grocery, and come back with more food, or just suck it up and eat drastically less and just hope it's going to be fine and do with what I have. And somehow, either I'm lazy or either I'm reckless, I decide the second option. And so I start losing weight quickly, even on the first week, because I had no idea that vegetable had almost no calorie. I think after the first and a half day, my meal was like a slice of bell pepper, maybe a piece of carrot, and a slice of avocado, and maybe a quarter of a fruit. And so, without going too much detail, I think with the fasting, the first week I realized I only ate 4,000 calories because I made some math afterward when I came back down to it. It's like I didn't understand why I was losing weight so much. I just didn't realize that there was no calorie in vegetable. And there's a bit more in fruit, but still I was not eating much compared to like the diet I had when I was working only the day before I came upstairs. It was probably around 5,000 calories because I rock climb almost every day, and I work in construction all day, and I work hard. And so, and at the time I used to smoke weed also every day. So that just make you eat 5,000 calories easily and just burn it. Okay, so where I'm at. So I'm up there, and I will fast forward to, I think it's day 10. So the first 7 days where I'm still eating a bit of food, it's perfect blue sky. Oh no, actually, 7 days, 8. It's perfect blue sky, and And on the last day, the seventh day, I I'm naked, just absorbing the sun. At the time, I had no idea the sun nourishes me. I didn't have this kind of education, spiritual education or healthy education back then. But I just was discovering what felt good and what didn't feel good anymore. And I started crying, or I started feeling emotion. I started feeling emotion, and I felt that I didn't understand why I was having emotion, and I felt I was about to cry, but I was actually feeling good about myself. Even if I lose a lot of weight, I was feeling good about myself going to this process and what was the shift that was happening and everything. And because I had a strong mind, I managed to resist for some time, and eventually I just let it go, and I cried and cried like I never cried in my life before. And I didn't. When I went up there, I just brought a empty notebook and a pencil, and I brought at the time a phone of somebody because I didn't own a phone that I could send text message in case I was in danger because nobody knew where I was located in the mountain. And I was not allowed to listen to music, not allowed to check the phone. I didn't have a phone. It was just a text message device, and yeah, no gadget. I and so what was the criteria is that I was not allowed to bring anything that could put information into my mind. The notebook was just that I could output something out of my mind, but nothing input. So I didn't brought any book either to read. And and all this was 100% new to me. I never spent more than a day on my own before that. and and so on the seventh day, I cried and I cried, and a I think I'm not gonna put it into words fully for this video because I want to talk about more stuff, but I will share more about this specific moment in the other video. So I'm already at 37 minutes, and I feel that just this moment deserves its own video. But something happened, and the way I would explain it the fastest is that there's no word to explain it. It's an emotion, it's an experience, and this is the same way as if you would be somebody extremely knowledgeable about orgasm, and you would try to explain to somebody who has never experienced orgasm. So it means that it's an experience on your own, and you can be qualified, have a lot of experience, and be a great teacher, but you know that in the moment you cannot transfer anything of the experience itself to the person that's virgin, to the person who haven't experienced his or her sexuality. And so the leap that exists between the one who knows, and even if you tell a truthful story, there's a gap. But you can create a thirst, a desire if you're a good storyteller and people believe that your story is authentic, and also because they already start feeling that something within themselves is bringing closer to that, but they haven't been able to experience the moment of spiritual orgasm. And so it helps the people who are seeking for whatever they believe, that they're close or they're in the right direction. And so that moment that I'm sharing that happened on the seventh day, when I was up there, is when I reached the edge of the mountain. So when there's many, you don't go always up mainstream, as you can see. Oops. And then the climbing path, and then when I start wanting to, so I had a perfect life, but eventually I bought a house, and then I wanted to propose my ex, and then that's why deeper over of unconsciousness, it just means that you're following your programming. It's not bad. It's just like everybody does it. It's programming, and it's conditioning. And conditioning, what it means is repetition of information. It can be a repetition of information or repetition of movement in our body. So physical conditioning, and then you get stronger. Or you have bad physical conditioning, like sitting on a chair, sitting on the toilet, sitting for eating food, and then you have problem to bend in the squat properly because you condition your leg to like just move in without full extension. And so conditioning, it means that we're repeated the same information over and over, and then eventually it becomes a reality, eventually it becomes our identity. Like our first word for everyone, I think it's mama, but there's no baby that say mama the first time. It's repeated to us 100 times, maybe thousands of times. And eventually we click, it's like, oh, mama. And then you understand that is the beginning of labeling everything. So for me, conditioning come from language. It's a communication system and it's useful, but it was only meant to be a communication system and not to become a language was meant for us to communicate and understand each other. But when we label everything, like here there's a bottle and bottle, and then I don't know, there's what you can see in the back. It's like there's a towel. So this for me is the conceptualization of reality, but it's not reality. It's the same thing as God, as love, as orgasm. Is like if you don't have your own experience, and and then you start believing what you've been told about love, about God, and then it happened to you, then you believe it. But if your prayer are met, and then you believe in God, and then if something happened, and then you believe that it goes against what you've been told about God, then you lose your faith. And it's just because what's your understanding of what's happening, it's not answering what you've been told, and so you lose faith when your prayer are heard, and you lose faith when your prayer are unheard, or when your expectation toward the divinity is broken. And the only problem is not that God doesn't exist. The problem is not because love doesn't exist. It's just because what we've been conditioned, we've been brainwashed to believe, is not matching a reality. And so to believe, or there's no difference between believing and doubting. They're just a mirror of one another. But when you know from your direct experience, then you don't need to believe anymore. The one who knows the sun exists or the earth is flat, I don't know, then you know for yourself. But if you believe that we're a sphere, I'm just joking, but if you believe what you've been told, and then another theory contradicted, then you start doubting what you've been told before. Anyway, I'm gonna go fast forward because I didn't mean that this first video is gonna be 45 minutes plus. I think we're going far. So in fewer words, the going against mainstream is the hardest because not only you have to go against your own doubt, but you also have to go against other people's doubt, like your friends, your family. When you say you have a job, you have a family, and it's nothing wrong with all that. But when you start feeling empty or wrong on the inside, then it's okay for you to walk away from it. It's okay for you to want happiness, to want fulfillment, to want meaning, even if it irritate or bother other people. And so a lot of people, I feel, are able to listen to themselves, but have a harder time facing adversity. Adversity means to face the negative opinion coming from other people around them that they love, that they respect. And so they question themselves, or they're not able to resist the criticism that's coming from their family, the lovers, their parents, their kids, or whoever. And so they go back to mainstream and continue to live an unhappy life. And just like me, who has had injuries all coming out on the right side, it expresses itself also in different ways. Some people it's allergy, some people it's cancer. I've seen people curing from cancer just from changing life, and people getting cancer from doing nothing wrong. And usually for me, it's just a sign that you're misaligned with your life. And instead of chemio, instead of medicine, it's just you have to change your life. There's something you have to change. And most of those change, I think there's four category. Either it's your diet, either it's your lifestyle, either it's your environment, or it's your relationship. And those are the main factor, I think. Maybe there's others, but I think those are the four main one. And then, and most people already know the answer, but we are often, if you have a strong mind, we're often arguing with our mind and justifying that we cannot stop, we cannot leave our town, we cannot leave our family because XX is reason. And they're all good reason. They're all good reason, but there's also, I believe, there's way to respect our inner calling, and at the same time respecting and being responsible for the people who we are responsible for. It doesn't mean that because you have this spiritual awakening that you just have to dump your kids on the street and just walk alone on your own. Some people have done it with okay outcome, but I think there's an ethical way to walk our spiritual journey as well. So it's gonna hurt people for sure, but there's a way that feels right and there's a way that feels wrong, I think. But that's just an opinion. And so the first part is going against mainstream, and I think this, I would call it first spiritual awakening. And then, without going too much in details, because I'm going to close this video soon, then this is just the beginning of the spiritual journey. The 7 year and a half that follow was this journey. And I know that it sounds arrogant and pretentious if I put God and enlightenment here, but actually I drafted this first. So you can see, this is my book. You can find it here on this website. And this is the first figure. There's actually like hundreds of them. I'm gonna show you. I drafted, and then my friend drafted for me, but there's hundreds of them pictogram that will show in a future video. And so if you like this one, then hopefully we have chance to see all of them. And so I will also express those one later on, but I think for this video I'm gonna stop soon. And then this is the spiritual journey that is the most beautiful, the most challenging, the most mind-blowing, and often frustrating as well, because we're carrying up our own mind all the way up. Yeah. Let me know if you resonate with this. And I wanted to say I drafted this. Actually, is the first drawing that I draft after I came back from the mountain, after my first retreat in the mountain. I didn't finish the whole journey. I ended up staying 15 days, and the first week was blue sky, perfectly blue sky. The second week, it was 7 days of hell, just rain. I get out at 10, only 4 hours in the second week. But and I was skinnier, I was cold, I was freezing. I didn't brought rain gear somehow because it was not the beginning of the rainy season. The rainy season started when I was up there. And I didn't want to come back down, but on the 15th day, there was a big windstorm and it pull out like 3/4 of all the tent peg that I had anchor my tents on the ground. So I kind of felt not frightened, but felt that it was a calling for me to go back down. And I didn't. I just restarted eating. I just ate one meal of, I don't know, 2 fruit, because after not eating for I calculate I only ate 4,000 calories in 2 weeks, and so I lost, I think, about 35 pounds. And I was super top shape before because I was working and climbing hard, and then I wanted to eat more, but I feel ill because your stomach just shrink. And then I had 1 week of vegetable and fruit, mostly heavy stuff, because so it outlasts the 2 weeks. And so it was like avocado and mango and stuff like that. And I managed to eat probably 2 fruit. And so I had to carry all that heavy fruit back down 3 hour in the slippery slope. But at least there was a small opening window of dry weather, and I came back down. And then my ex wasn't there, but I had 2 roommates at the time, and they were scared because one of them knew me from before. So he said I lost a lot of weight, but one, it was a new roommate. So it was like he just arrived 2 weeks before. He saw me all top shape, strong, and then I come back. I was super happy, super energized, but I had lost like 35 pounds, and he was super worried and scared for me. But he saw that that I was full of energy, so he calmed down, and yeah. So that was the beginning of my journey. I don't know, it's not meant to inspire you. I think I just want to connect with an audience. I don't know where you are at your journey, if you resonate with it, if you see yourself. Oh yeah, so when I came back down from the mountain, I know I'm distracted, I know I repeat myself, but when I came back down from the mountain, the first vision that came was the title of my book, The Bible Revolution, that I wrote down on the mountain when I was in the tent suffering. And also write down a chapter of what I experienced when I was crying. The first sentence that came out when I woke up from crying I think I cried for 6 hours. And then when I woke up from this trance, I wrote a paragraph, which I will tell in a different video. But when I came back down, the first thing I drafted is the vision of this map. And so I think now it's been already, so this is in 2012, so now we're in the end of 2025. 13 years later, I feel that I would have designed and written this map differently. But it is what it is. I think it will, some people will connect, some people will not connect. Tell me in the comment section if you had something similar happen to you, if you resonate with my map, if you feel you would have write it differently, and then share with me. And yeah, so I will leave you with this. I'm already at 53 minutes. I didn't expect that. I was trying for 20 or 30 minutes, but it's my first video, so obviously I'm not that efficient yet. And I repeat myself, go in circle, forget, and there's no note. It's all freestyle. But at least it's done, and I feel happy and complete for now. Hopefully, I see you in the next video. And yeah, if you resonate with this journey, comment, like, and subscribe. And I love you all.